Yeah, we've made 5 million quid on the top of the table. Any questions?
Yeah, that's fine. I wondered what that was.
In the script as well, I'm not sure, but I think you said there's been 3 they will. It could be 5 million. Because you're opening the bid. You actually got a minute to get them.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I ask you to grab a seat, please, so we can get underway? Yes, Stu. Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Surrey County Cricket Club in the Kia Oval and the 2022 AGM. Before the chair formally opens the meeting, I have a few housekeeping points to cover. Firstly, it's fantastic to see so many of you here, and with that in mind, there's enough people here that we do have a quorum, which is brilliant, so we can conduct our business this evening, and it's lovely to see so many of you here. And I will read this to make sure that I get this right, and this is in relation to our voting. So the voting today will be conducted on a show of hands. May I remind you that members who are present here in person are entitled to one vote on a show of hands. A summary of each resolution will be shown on the screen behind me, together with a breakdown of the proxy votes we have received after each resolution is put to the vote. The results of the voting will be announced on our website as soon as possible after this. We have also used proxy voting this year to allow those who could not attend to appoint a proxy or allow their vote to carry with the chair. Those attending online will be able to participate fully in the meeting by asking questions using the chat function during the Q&A. This will be facilitated by John Surtees in the corner, and those questions will be presented to the panel. Please be aware that members are being moderated on Zoom and that the chat function will only be available once the Q&A begins. to avoid disruption prior to that. We're also streaming this AGM on YouTube and Facebook to provide additional capacity. That's all from me right now, and I'd like to introduce Richard Thompson, Chair of Surrey County Cricket Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome to your first Surrey County Cricket Club AGM. So that's our first welcome to Steve, first of many. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 2022 AGM. This is the first time we have been unrestricted, not socially distanced for 2 years. So it's great to have so many of you here, and I know so many of you on the live stream as well. So thank you for making the effort to come this evening. Let me introduce firstly the top table to you. We have Steve Elworthy, our Chief Executive, Martin Eden, our Honorary Treasurer, Alex Stewart, our Director of Cricket, Andrew Lane, our Finance Director, and Ebony Rainford-Brent, our Director of Culture and Values and the Chair of ACE Programme. May I also welcome Emily Clark, our Head of Sales and Marketing, and also Cam Lally from our solicitors, Wedlake Bell, Andy Halls from our auditors at Deloitte, and Callum Doyle, our Company Secretary. We will be inviting Gareth and John to say a few words as well, talking about the men and the girls' game that's doing so well at the moment, the coach of Oval Invincibles, and Gareth Batty, interim head of coach of Surrey. But before I do that, I would like to pay tribute to some of those members of the Surrey family that are no longer with us and have passed away in the last 12 months. It's always very sad to have lost anyone from our family, but certainly over the last 12 months we've lost people who are absolutely pillars of this club. And I would like to pay tribute to Bernie Coleman, OBE, to Alistair Jury, to Keith Evermy, to Ken Lawrence, to Peter Luff, to the great Derek Newton, and to Tony Pannell. In talking about Bernie and Derek particularly, it's hard not to say enough platitudes of their contribution to the club. Certainly there would not be an AFC Wimbledon without Bernie Coleman. There would be many, many young cricketers that would not have a career and the promise that they fulfilled without Bernie Coleman's support over many, many years. And Derek Newton, in our 178-year history, is only one of 4 people ever to serve as our chairman and as our president, and they are dearly lost. I would like to ask you all to stand for a few moments of reflection for some time to remember them. Thank you. Thank you. So before we start our meeting proper, I would like to introduce Alex Stewart, our Director of Cricket, who will then refer to Gareth Batty and John Batty to talk about cricket for the season ahead. Alec, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to review last year for those of you who haven't seen this year's yearbook, then look a little bit further ahead and then introduce Gareth, who will then introduce John Batty. I think if you look at last year, I think it's fair to say it was frustrating, disappointing season. We started off with I called it the conference, probably not the county championship the way it was played, it was a conference, and we didn't get out of the group to go into the top 6 to then have a chance of winning the championship. We had our England players available at the first part of the season, and I think they'll be the first to admit we didn't perform to the levels that we would expect. Some of the reasons were they had other things on their mind. That's not taking the weak option. That will be, would they be playing for England? Were they going to get selected? If they'd just been left out, that can play on people's minds, and sadly that can then come into their performances. But as a group, management and players, we weren't quite good enough in that. I think we can also look at the quality of the pitches. I think already we've seen this year we've played on 2 very, very good pitches, but we need to play on good cricket pitches to produce good results. And there are a number of games we played on last year, which I think there's 2 pitches in particular we may still be playing on this year and still not being able to take 20 wickets. So if we can play on better cricket pitches, then I think we'll see better cricket as well. And then the age-old problem of injuries, both to our overseas players and some very valued members of our side as well, were injured. But overall, from a conference championship point of view, we weren't good enough, which we will try and rectify this year. Moving on to T20, we failed to qualify on net run rate, literally by 3 runs, which again is hugely frustrating. We had our England players available for the first 5 T20 games. We won 3 easily, and I think you'll agree we played some excellent cricket. We then had 2 washed out with our full side available. Then with injuries and results that didn't quite go as we wanted, as I say, we sadly missed out. You can look at the 50 over as a bit of a shining light. It was a second-rate competition because of the 100, taking away 12 of our players, which therefore gave younger players and players who wouldn't have had an opportunity a great chance to play A-list cricket. And I think you'd say we did ourselves very proud indeed. Ryan Patel, a couple of hundreds he scored, Guildford in particular, those that were lucky enough to have witnessed that will still be fresh in the memory. But to get to the semi-final, we're very much, and I'm being polite, a second-rate side. It certainly wasn't our first-pick side, but the way those players stood up showed the strength of depth and the potential within the group, which I think will reap rewards this year and beyond, because there's quality there which is developing all the time. So that was sort of last year. Then moving forward to the winter, everything was set up nicely to have a good winter of coaching, of developing players, and making sure we were well prepared for the start of the season. Then either side of Christmas, going into the new year, we lost our head coach, Vikram Solanki, and our assistant head coach in Richard Johnson, both who were making big strides, making good progress, and setting up good foundations for us to build on. But Vikram, who I won't have a bad word said about, he's a great man, he's a wonderful human being, and he was making great strides as a head coach, has gone to the IPL. And you have to respect people's ambitions. So it's very sad for him to go. He was on a notice period, we could have held him to that, but because of what he's given to the club, it was only right that we allowed him to further his career. And very similar with Richard Johnson, his old county, that lot north of the river, wanted him back as head coach. And again, I'm not about standing in people's way if they believe that moving from here is going to give them a better opportunity and achieve some of the ambitions that they have. So to leave as an assistant coach, head coach, to go to a head coach role to Middlesex is understandable. And from Vikram's point of view, to take on a director of cricket role at a new franchise at the IPL, I think and hope you'd agree, is another great opportunity for those individuals. And they went with our blessing, and we want to thank them for what they gave to the club, and they'll always be welcome back through the gates. Richard Johnson less so if he has a Middlesex sweater on. But when people go, it creates other opportunities. And we've used the word interim because that's what we do. We could have gone through a full process of interviews and everything, but I believe that that would have taken too long. And we may not have been able to appoint replacement coaches on a full-time basis before the start of the season, and that to me would have been pretty careless. They wouldn't have got to know the squad, and the squad wouldn't have got to know them. So I had, and he'll be up in a minute, no doubt we'll give him a standing ovation, but someone who knows our club absolutely inside out, someone who retired from playing but was already making great strides as a coach, working with a second team and some first team players, but the passion and knowledge that he has given as an assistant coach, it was a no-brainer to then say and ask, because he had to say yes, but I asked him, would Gareth Batty take over as interim head coach? And thankfully he said yes, which I thank him for, because already in a short space of time, we've seen someone with energy, with passion, with knowledge, with a work ethic second to none, and the players are buying into his methods. It's very much a two-way thing, it's players and coaches. The coaches will prepare, and then the players go and perform. What I can tell you is what Gareth has done already is making sure that when they walk across that white line, they are very, very well prepared. Now, he's not just done that on his own, because I know he'll be the first to say it's not just about him, but also has managed to bring in another former Surrey favourite in Azam Mahmood. Again, I've been trying to get hold of him for 5 or 6 years. He's been with Pakistan, he's been with other franchise cricket. But Azam Mahmood has come in, and I think straight away we've all seen he has improved the bowling unit and the group in general. And I think the biggest tick I can give him, but also the individual, is Jamie Overton. I think the way we've seen Jamie bowl in the last couple of games is a bowler who's full of confidence. He's getting better and better. But a couple of technical changes that Azra has brought in and Jamie has brought into has enabled him to move forward. And then lastly, Jim Troughton, who had been captain and also head coach at Warwickshire, was very much available. Knows batting inside out, but also his overall coaching knowledge, and without trying to steal Gareth's words, as also will assist Gareth in his development as a head coach, because Jim has been there and done it. He's won championships at Warwickshire as a player and as a coach, so to get him on board in such short space of time is great as well. So that's sort of the winter, and then looking forward, and I'll let Gareth speak about the squad and what we've done so far and what we intend to do moving forward. But then the other things that we have to confront is franchise cricket. Now, whether that is the 100, whether that's the IPL, all the other franchise cricket around the world that is now played, that is changing the face of county cricket and domestic cricket, which we have to accept. There's no point fighting it because it's here to stay. But what we have to do is, when they're our players, that we look after them, make them as best as we can, so that if they do get those opportunities, they go there, they earn good money. We're not going to take that away from them, but we still want them to come back here ready to perform for Surrey. And that is why I was very strong this year on this IPL ruling that if a player had not been signed by the 28th of February as a replacement in the IPL, they would not go. And we had one player who was asked to go in early March, and I turned that down, or the club turned that down. The player accepted it, and he's now playing for us, but he's fully on board with us. But if we allow franchises to walk all over us, then we're in a pretty sad state. So it's important that we understand that the world of cricket is changing, that franchise cricket is here to stay. But what I will say, when they're Surrey players wearing a Surrey shirt, they will be 100% committed. If not, they can find somewhere else to play. But thankfully, this group of players are fully committed. Just looking ahead, listen, we've just had a poor Ashes series. I'll be polite. It was more like when I played. I think we were probably worse back then. But what happens every time we lose the Ashes in Australia, there will be a review. There has been, probably for the last 3 or 4 Ashes losses. County cricket's to blame, everything else. When we win, it's because of central contracts. So it's important that Andrew Strauss and his review team do not underestimate the strength of county cricket. Without county cricket, there won't be an England team. So we as a county have to make sure that we produce the best cricketers possible. We give as many people an opportunity to show off their talents, and then make sure that our coaches, the quality of coaching is there to improve the players. And that's what we want to do. So I know it does upset a few of you when I say, yes, we want to try and win trophies, but we should also see players going off to play for England who've come through our Surrey system. We should be proud of that. I know it does affect the strength of our team. I get that 100%, but we should not deny players the opportunity of fulfilling their dreams, and that should always be to play at the highest level. What the domestic structure is going to look like moving forward, I don't think we've got any idea at all. Andrew Strauss has got to put a group of people together to try and come up with a solution to try and take English cricket forward and to make England #1 in the world in all formats. But how we'll look next year and beyond, I don't know. But what we need as Surrey, and with our chairman and chief exec, I'm pretty confident that we've got pretty loud voices and influential voices to make sure that Surrey don't suffer and the domestic game does not suffer, so that you as members, and I think we've got over 17,000, I believe, still have plenty of good quality cricket to watch here at the Oval, and to see people wearing the Surrey shirt for the right reasons. We'll find out what it looks like. Will it be the same this year? Will it be, you hear 3 6s, you hear 12-6, you hear get rid of a load of counties and reduce it all? I've got no idea, but all I will say is that county cricket produces England cricketers. And as long as we all have that in our mind, and Andrew Strauss has that, then I think we've got a chance of moving forward. If we say county cricket is a waste of time, then English cricket's in trouble. So if we can all back that, as I say, trust people who will have influential voices and may have an impact on the way it goes forward, then I'm confident, as I say, with these two either side of me, I hope and know that that will be the case. But from me, say thank you for listening, thank you for the support you give us. Last year was disappointing. I'm not hiding behind that. This year, it's a new year. So learn from the past. Always say perform in the present and then plan for the future. Right? And that's what we're about. And that is why the man who's coming up here has already played a big part and is making a big impact in a short space of time. So please give a warm welcome to our interim head coach, Gareth Batty. Thank you.
Apologies for me reading off my phone. I've just got a text from my little daughter at home. Joking. I have 3 things I'm meant to be talking about. First one is pre-season and how did the interim coach come around. First couple of games and then looking forward. COVID, whether we like it or not, has played a huge part in life. It has basically hamstrung players being able to do the work that they were required to do at times. Yes, I know that life in general was pretty bad for people, but this is not hiding from the fact that performances were not where we wanted them to be. So, starting November, we were able to roll our sleeves up and get some work done. Let's be honest, I think we've all seen a few little bits and glimpses of where we possibly could get to. The winter was the most important thing that has happened for 3 years. That November to Christmas, which was Vikram Solanki, and I was very much a broom up my backside, sweeping up. Vikram was leading all that. We are all very lucky to be creaming off that brilliant work. We've taken it forward, January, February, March, and we have put some brilliant things in place. I personally think we have a foundation to work from now. How the interim coach thing came around, I'll be brutally honest. I was very, very happy working under Vikram and working for the boss. It was never an ambition to be stood up here addressing you guys with the title. Vikram has gone to take over an IPL team, Surrey B team. Fair dues, good on you. Which meant I could actually, when the boss asked, say, yes, please, sir, I would love to do it. It would be my honour. I won't apologise for my emotions. I won't apologise for the enthusiasm I will try and throw into the job. I'm not very good at this public speaking bit, so I don't do too much talking in the changing room. We have to appreciate that we have the best captain in the country back at the minute. That is why we are thriving at the minute. He leads the team on the field. Once they cross the whitewash, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with any of us really, it's Rory Burns. So everything should be going his way at the minute. As a club, we need to rally around him. He's gone through some tough times with the England stuff, he will get back there, no dramas. But that's the one thing I ask, can we rally around Rory Burns right now? And this team that, I think we can all say, are playing some pretty special cricket. I would pay money to watch it now. Fortunately, I get my £2.50 an hour to coach them. The moving forward bit, the season, I don't want to talk too much about our plans moving forward. I truly believe the work has been done and will continue to be done. This is not our ceiling point. If anybody's sat in the room thinking they've seen some nice cricket in the last 3 weeks that we've been playing, yes, it has. It's been very, very nice. I think we've got a far higher ceiling point than that. I think we can improve by a good 10%, if not a little bit more. There'll be others in the room thinking, and Alec touched on it, when England players go, what are we going to do? Don't worry. Our youngsters, the work they've done, the way they are training, they're already training like international players. They're not going to perform like that all the time right now. Give them some time. But wow, are they doing it right. And that is led by our wonderful senior players. So having them back, and I go back to it, having Rory back, and Popey back, and the Currans, Hashim Amla's back, having all the boys back. I'm missing somebody, and apologies. Folks is back. We're in a very fine place. We cannot, and we will not, stand on our laurels. We will keep moving forward. And I suppose I would leave it that at the end of the season, you guys are what we do it for. You're our judge and jury. At the minute, all pretty cool. But let's keep doing the hard work so that we are in a place at the end of the season where there's some very happy faces there looking back, and I still potentially have a job and not working at McDonald's down the road. Apologies that it wasn't as pristine as it will be from the great man John Batty coming up now, but I hope you've enjoyed some young men putting in some very good performances. There is more to come.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, obviously, Surrey women's cricket and a little bit about the Oval Invincibles women's team as well. Now, Surrey women obviously feature in 3 competitions through the year. We have the County Championship, the London Championship and the London Cup. County Championship in 2021, we played in a regional group, obviously limitations again around COVID, shortening the season down a little bit. We actually finished second in our group, played some really good cricket along the way. Probably a reflection of where the team are at the moment, with a really nice mix of senior players and some good quality youngsters coming through, but perhaps not as experienced as some of the other teams around the country. The London Championship is a 50-over competition that Surrey have been very much behind driving that forward. Without it, the County Championship finishes in May. It's only played through April and May, so there would be very little cricket for the girls to play through the rest of the season. So we got in touch with Middlesex, Essex, Sussex and Kent and said, let's perform some really good quality cricket for the girls to enjoy through the rest of the season. It was a great competition. We finished second, narrowly missing out to Kent. We had our last game rained off, and if we just achieved a few bonus points in that, we'd have overhauled them. So, great season. A little bit disappointing not to take the trophy home, but again, some really good performances by the girls. Particularly a couple of younger girls. Maddie Blinkhorn-Jones, who played her first games last year, was one of the leading batters, along with Chloe Brewer, but some good performances along the way. Unfortunately, we lost a standalone London Cup, which is a one-day game that we play against Middlesex each year. We lost that, unfortunately, so had to hand the trophy back. Now, we enjoy a relationship with the South East Stars. So Surrey and Kent merged to form the South East Stars, the regional women's programme, the regional women's team. Obviously, a lot of our players play for the South East Stars, so obviously we get those players back for the County Championship and the London Championship, etc. But it's great to see some players like Alice Capsey, who burst on the scene last year and was rewarded by a stellar year with a call-up to the England A team for the tour to Australia in the winter. She was on the England A tour alongside Bryony Smith as well. Obviously, shouldn't forget Nat Siver and Sophia Dunkley, 2 Surrey players as well. Nat became #1 all-rounder in the world in the ICC rankings recently, and obviously Sophia's England career has got off to a great start as well. Alice Capsey and Danny Gregory, 2 of our younger players, also earned their first full-time professional contract with the Stars at the end of last season. So things are looking really, really good for women's cricket in Surrey at the moment. We've so far played 2 rounds in this year's County Championship. We've won 1 out of 4 games. We lost 3. We had a poor weekend last weekend, but the girls are very keen to bounce back on Bank Holiday Monday down at Chipstead, so please feel free to pop down next week if you're around. The aim of the Surrey Women's programme is it's a bit of a balancing act at the moment. We've talked about the regional programme, and there are 6 full-time professional girls playing in that team. And the balance between assisting the Surrey girls who aren't yet full-time professionals in trying to earn their professional contracts with the Stars, bringing through some younger players from the performance programme. Catherine Robson has been appointed performance manager for the Women and Girls programme, which will provide a really, really good link from the senior team down through the pathway as well. One player to look out for, Charlotte Lambert, is a 16-year-old who's come through during the winter. She's actually nailed down a place in the starting lineup for the senior women's team. She's a fast bowler, got huge potential, so keep your eye out for her this year. Now on to the 100. I think it'd be fair to say that the 100 has been a complete game changer for women's cricket in this country. It was obviously fantastic to be here at the home of cricket, to launch the tournament as with the standalone game for the women's competition, where we saw about 7,500 people come through the gate. And the crowds kept on growing until about 8,500 watched the final, where obviously we were fairly successful at Lords. It was hugely enjoyable for me to coach the Invincibles, and the girls deserve huge credit for how they handled the different challenges. Seeing the girls' reaction that first evening here with 7,500 people in the ground, the looks on their faces, how nervous. They hadn't experienced anything like that. They hadn't experienced the media attention. There were lots of them on the day of the game. They were on breakfast TV, they were on the lunchtime news. They were thrust onto the internet, into the newspapers. And for them to play as well as they did under that scrutiny with the COVID protocols, we're in a bubble. I think I made it home for 3 nights in 5.5 weeks. The rest of the time we were locked away in a hotel. They were fantastic. They were really, really outstanding, and that bodes well for the future for lots of those girls. I captained Danae van Neerkerk. Some of you may remember from the Surrey Stars days in the Kia Super League. Was player of the tournament. Captained us fantastically. We had 2 other South Africans as our overseas players, Marizanne Kapp and Shabnam Ismail. Unfortunately, we lost both of those for a majority of the tournament, actually with injuries, probably as a result of the COVID protocols. The fact they were locked in a hotel room for 6 days before the first game started. To come through the tournament, having lost 2 of our overseas players, was brilliant. There was still a core group of Surrey girls playing in that Oval Invincibles side. So although it wasn't Surrey itself, there was still very much that Surrey link. Alice Capsey, Danny Gregory and Rihanna Southby were those girls, and we're bringing some more of the Surrey girls into the squad this year. Ailish Cranston, our captain this year in 2022 at Surrey, played at London Spirit. Bryony Smith and Amy Gordon also played at Welsh Fire. So you see the Surrey girls are out there on the franchise stage playing some very, very good cricket. We've strengthened the squad this year. We've added England keeper batter Lauren Winfield-Hill to the squad. We've got a 4th overseas player still to sign in a draft coming up. As I say, we've also pulled in an extra couple of Surrey girls along the way as well. Women's cricket in this country is in a great position. It's in a pivotal place where it's going to go in terms of regional cricket, county cricket, what the role of county cricket is. I think it's probably going to go more developmental in getting young players through to that regional performance programme. But we're really lucky here at Surrey. We've got a great performance programme. We've got a lot of girls coming through school cricket, really keen to play, and the game is growing astronomically. It really is fantastic. As I say, if you can get down some of the women's games, that'd be great to see you all down there. Have a great evening, everybody. Great to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec. Thank you, John. Thank you, Bats, for some really good insight there. You will have an opportunity later on in the meeting to ask questions to cricket and the broader club, so obviously that moment will come. So on to the AGM proper now, to item 1, confirmation of minutes. So the minutes of our previous AGM, which was held on the 18th of May 2021, have been available from the club for inspection prior to the meeting, both online and on request. I would now like to ask for a proposer and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the 18th of May. Proposer, thank you, sir. A seconder, Mike Soper. And if I could have a show of hands in the room for all members to confirm the minutes of the 18th of May 2021. Those 4. Any against? Sorry, the hand's just gone down. Fine. That's passed. And for item 1, because we have proxy votes, this will be a slightly more laboured meeting than other meetings, because I just want to inform you of the proxy votes. So for item 1, I can confirm that the club received 719 proxy votes in favour and 1 against. So I can clearly say that motion has passed. So before we get into other aspects of the meeting, I think it's important you hear from our new Chief Executive, Steve Erworthy, who will talk to you about this year's plans and his thoughts on his first 4 months in charge. Steve, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I've only got 3 slides for you to run through this evening. And really the first bit is to really just share some of my reflections with you in the first 3.5 months, the first 4 months really of me being here. And then have a bit of a chat to you about some of the priorities that I see for the club in the immediate future. So we're talking sort of 2022, probably running into 2023. And then some of the longer term ambitions that we have for the club, thinking more towards 2030, 2031, in line with the ICC Future Tours program and our own Future Tours or bilateral series that are coming. But before I do that, I would like to just take a moment just to say a massive thank you to my predecessors, Richard Gould and Interim Chief Exec Charlie Hodgson, and more importantly as well, the entire Surrey County Cricket Club staff for leaving the club in a place that it actually is. And I'm sure, as you'll see, as you've seen probably in the numbers, and you will see tonight, is in an incredibly strong and healthy position. And that was on the back of probably 2 of the hardest years I've been involved in the sport. And, you know, even the 21 season was delivered with a lot less people than we had because of the redundancy programs that were right across the game, from counties to ECB and everywhere. And it was an absolutely brutal season. But I still think the team have done an incredible job to get us to where we are. And it's a huge thank you to both those chief executives, my predecessors, and the staff here, which is allowing us to build actually on the plans that we have now, thinking about how we come out of COVID and some of those priorities that have changed. I think the world has changed, as we all know. People's values have changed. What's important to people has changed, and the way they behave has also changed. And we need to reflect that. We've got probably hundreds and thousands of people coming through the gates this year, and we need to make sure that we can reflect those changes. So a couple of the bullet points that you'll see on the screen in front of you, I think a few of those, my first reflections, and this is not an exhaustive list, clearly. I've got loads more reflections, and the priorities are probably as long as your arm as well, and I've only selected a few to go through. But the one thing that really struck me when I first came through those first couple of weeks were the number of people that came and spoke to me about the loyalty in the club, the loyalty of the members, the loyalty of the staff, and what it actually meant to them. People actually proactively coming and speak to me about it, which was incredible. It doesn't matter really how much research you do before you come into a job, because it's really very 2D on a screen somewhere. But it's only really when you get your feet under the table do you realize the breadth and depth and the scope that this club has. And that was unbelievable. The first couple of months, it didn't really matter which meeting I went to, whether it was either internally, but more importantly, externally, how many people had a relationship with this club in one form or the other. And it was fantastic to see and fantastic to hear. And we just saw, over the last couple of days, we saw a fantastic presentation out on the field, members who have been continuous members for 50 and 60 years. It's an unbelievable commitment. Some of the staff that we've got here, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years they've been involved in the club. And the average tenure of a staff member here is about 8 years. It's incredible how long that is, and it just shows the loyalty that there is for this club, and it's certainly something that struck a chord with me. The second 2 points really, they go together. So the power of sport to make a positive difference and how Surrey can lead the way, and then finding opportunities through the club to bring about positive change. I think those are conversations that we've all had over the course of the last couple of months, absolutely. Everything that we've seen on the back end of last year, what's happened in cricket more globally, and the back end of the discussions, and you see that very incredibly powerful testimony from Azim Rafiq at the DCMS Select Committee. And what it does is it just makes you reassess, makes you really think about the sport, and actually how the power of the sport and the power of actually cricket, what it can do. Cricket is the answer for a lot of these things, and we can really make a difference. And that for me is a really key element. How do we ensure that we've got a level playing field here, that it doesn't matter who you are, from which background you come from, or how big your bank balance is. If you want to access cricket, you should be able to access cricket. And that, for me, is the key driver. We absolutely have to have a level playing field here. So really, what can we do? And then that's sort of like the philosophical discussion, if you will. And then you've got to think about what opportunities do we have to actually put that into play, that we can look for those small opportunities. And actually, one of them, as you'll see on the screen behind me, just allowing spectators back onto the field again. I think there's a small opportunity about how that reset happens, what it actually means. I remember as a young kid, it was the first thing I wanted to do. You go with your dad to the ground, and all I wanted to do was play cricket where the big boys played. And that was it. End of story. And those are the things that really got you going as a young kid. Now, this is just something that has just been absolutely fantastic for us, and it's just something that we've got to keep on doing. And it's just some of those small opportunities. Bigger opportunities that we've got, and we're going to hear from Ebbs during the course of this 3-slide presentation. Ebbs is going to chat to us about the Values and Culture Board, but more importantly, ACE. What an unbelievable program is. That's an incredible opportunity for us. And a further one, just thinking about the sustainability piece, as I said, the reassessment of what's been going on. We're just about to recruit. We've been through the final presentations of a head of sustainability for the club. We'll be one of the first. Actually, MCC and Lords had a head of sustainability for a number of years, but that ceased about 3 or 4 years ago. So we will be the only county cricket club that will have a head of sustainability going forward. And we've got some very aggressive and very ambitious goals about our sustainability program, which we'll chat about in the next slide or so. And then finally, the last piece really is the end of the long-term staging agreement. Now, that's been in place for a couple of decades now, and that finishes at the end of this year. We have cricket allocated to us for 23 and 24. We've got the Ashes next year, and we're not quite sure what content we will have and what cricket will be played here internationally in 2024. That is still to be decided and defined through the ICC Future Tours program in all the countries around the world. So that's something that's been bubbling along because we've come to the end of that now, and how as a club do we react to that? So those are just some of my immediate reflections on, as I said, the first 3.5 months. Some of the immediate priorities, and I've put up, there's a little bit more pictures here. It's not so word heavy. But one thing I just moving on from the point about the long-term staging agreement, one of the things that we do want to do is ensure that we want to win trophies, as we've heard from the 3 gents before me, really clear and really something that as a club we need to aspire to, and I think we've heard some of that drive and that ambition and that passion to actually achieve that. So really clear about the winning trophies. The other side of the cricket which is there is the priority for the immediate probably year, I would say, depending on when this has time to get to from an ECB perspective, is how we secure the next package of rights from 25 to 31. ECB has a bidding process normally that you go through. I was part of that role at the ECB. Over my 14 years I was there, and there is a process that you need to go to, and there is a balanced scorecard, and there are criteria that you need to work through, and you have to present as a ground and as a club why you are the best club for some of that cricket and that cricket content over the number of years. So that is a really, really important part in terms of all of the long-term planning as a club that we need that security, and that will give us security from 25 until 2031. But that will happen within the course, I would say, probably in the next calendar year or so. There are a number of factors that the ECB is still working through, but I'm envisaging that will happen over the course of the next year. What we'll continue to do is keep on working with the Independent Commission for Equity in Cricket. There was a call for evidence last year, which you'll all be aware of, and there was a second call of evidence which we've submitted now. We are one of 9 counties that were selected out of the 18, where the ICEC wanted to have more in-depth discussions with us. They selected a range of counties, and that is based on the back of what we had at the end of last year. Now, we've submitted that as a club with the Surrey Cricket Foundation. We've made one submission, and that was everything in terms of EDI, our culture within the sport, our pathway, all of our community outreach programs, and we needed to complete that document for them, and that has been submitted. There will be a further call from us, and that's been absolutely fantastic, actually, been involved with that, particularly when you have the one-on-one conversations with the ICC. We are learning so much. Yes, we've got some fantastic initiatives, but there is still so much that we can do, and that's very clear. But working with them and being part of this, particularly that 9, I think is very, very good for us. And we'll continue to work with them with a report to be due to be published at the back end of the summer, so September this year. The picture in your top right corner is really about sustainability, and I did touch on this earlier, and we've got a preferred candidate which we will announce fairly soon. We have gone through the interviews and we will have that head of sustainability, but really what we need to do as a club is think about what our sustainability goals are and how strategically are we going to move forward in this, and when are we wanting to be net zero or carbon neutral. These are things that a lot of our suppliers and a lot of our partners are asking us. They want to know what our goals and our ambitions are in the space. And that is reflected too in terms of what they are doing, where they source and how do they source their product and where does it come from? How is all of their kit made and where does that come from too? So these are all through the supply chain. It's not just here in the club, but it's certainly something from our perspective. We want to be a leader. If we go back to the previous slide about how do we as a club lead the game, this is one of the areas that we need to do that. And we've also, we have won trophies already. We've won recognition of the work that we've done as a club in this space. But really, we want to accelerate and go forward. And whether or not we think we want to be carbon neutral by 2030, in line with that, it is very ambitious. But I think unless you are ambitious, you're going to fall short. So these are some of the plans and how we set that sustainability strategy through the organisation. The EDI piece at the end and the bottom corner there, that's obviously something we've signed up to the 12-point plan from an ECB perspective, as you'll all be aware. And there are a couple of those that are operationally we need to deliver as a club. And we are working through that. But all of those EDI plans we need to integrate across the business. We need to make sure it's communicated quite clearly. EDI will be part of people's performance reviews going forward. It'll be part of their KPIs. And that has all got to be delivered over the course of the next couple of years. We are working through our own EDI, Surrey County Cricket Club, our own EDI plan, which will be published fairly soon. But those are elements of the game that are now going to be embedded in the club. And again, Ebbs is going to chat a little bit about that because I think the Values and Culture Board are going to be incredibly important in that space. Immediate priorities, and there's a little graphic I found there which I thought was fantastic, because a lot of the conversations that I've had with people, be that either phone calls or stopping me as I'm walking around the ground or letters, is around about our communication. And the one thing we have to do is considerably improve our communications across the club, and that particularly with the members. I know there are a number of letters that I've got from people, whether it is the actual design of our membership guide, whether or not it's the vouchers, for example, your guest vouchers. I know I've had a lot of conversations around the guest vouchers. There we go. I thought it might ring a bell. But these are things that we are working through at the moment. And I think the communication about all of this is very important for us. It can go back to either even the delivery, and I know I've had a conversation with a few of you about your membership cards that haven't arrived in time. But these are things that we, as I said, we've got a growing membership, just over 17,000 members. Everybody has a different preference of how they want to have their communication come to them. And that is the challenge for us as we grow. But we have to try and find a solution for everybody. And we will get ahead of that, and we will make sure that we address it. It's certainly something that is on my radar. There have been one or two blips, and we've got to hold our hand up with some of the stuff. We haven't got it right. We're not going to try and make excuses. That's going to be sorted, and we will sort it. You just need to give us some time and we'll get it done. We are staffing up. We've had a number of people leave the organisation. I think it's called, from just a normal out there corporate world, is Resignation City. It's just incredible how many resignations there are around. And people have been sitting in jobs for a couple of years, and the opportunities are there. It's a very much an employer's market, and we're not immune to that. But at the same time, we will address these issues, and I think we're going to improve significantly our communication across the club. And then the final piece is that picture in the bottom right corner, and that really for me is two elements. The first one, before I hand over to Ebbs, is in relation to our relationship with Surrey Cricket Foundation and our engagement with the local community. Very important, and I think we've worked very closely now with the Surrey Foundation. We've got a lot closer. We've got a stronger MOU with them. They're doing some fantastic work out in the field, whether it's the refugee program or it's the Street City kids cricket that is going. We've got a Street City World Cup in India in 2023, and all of that work that the Surrey Foundation does. But we will be supporting them a lot more, and we will make sure we want to get into the community. We want to be effectively the heart of the community, and they are part of us now. They're part of the club, and they've been doing a fantastic job. And we just need to help bolster that and make sure that it's not only Surrey which moves down the county, but our immediate vicinity here where the Kia Oval is. So it really is a key element for us, and working with the foundation is a critical element of all of that, particularly with our local community. Now, I'm going to hand over to Ebbs, who's going to give us a quick run-through of the Values and Culture Board and ACE, and I'll hand over now to Ebbs, and I think if I press this, hopefully we're going to get a video that will start, and then Ebbs will come up and chat to you about the Values and Culture Board and ACE, and then I'll come back and finish off with the longer-term ambitions. Thank you.
There's not many black faces in cricket, in general, really. The numbers are not coming through at the grassroots all the way through to the international. It's dropped by 75% over the last 20 years.
I don't think young black British kids have enough role models in England to want to play cricket.
There's not many black faces in cricket, in general, really. The numbers are not coming through at the grassroots all the way through to the international. It's dropped by 75% over the last 20 years.
I don't think young...
While they're sorting it out, I might as well... What would you like me to do, tech guys? Do you want to give it one last go, or shall I I'll get chatting, and then hopefully the video will work at the end. Okay, good evening, everybody. Always honoured to be here, especially on a big night like the AGM. I'll just bring this down because I think you guys are a lot taller than me, especially you, Richard. The video that was about to play was going to show you a video of the ACE programme, which is a charity. It's a fully fledged independent charity that was started at this club about 2 years ago, that now has become national and is being run across 6 cities. I'm sure many of you are cricket fans. In the 70s, 80s, 90s even, you would have seen people from the black British community playing cricket in professional teams, and that dropped by 75%, which, you know, and a lot of us who love players and love seeing the history of this club, you know, would have been gutted to see that there was such a decline from the community. And being that we're in the heart of South London in particular, I think the club wanted to do something about it. So there was a bit of start-up capital. Richard Thompson and Richard Gould at the time put in £25,000 just to test were there young people in the community who were out there who wanted to play, and did any have any talent. And the surprise for us was straight away 100 young people turned up to the indoor centre, and quite a lot had talent, which got us going, hold on, we need to capture these young people and support them. And I think what we learned, you know, and I think it's part of the values of the club going forward, is we want to be more accessible to lots of different communities. And we realised as a result of that programme, there's lots of young people out there at the moment who maybe don't see cricket quite right for them at the moment, but if we put it in their hands and make it accessible, they'll be desperate to grab onto it. So we started the programme. Went so well, had so many young people. For example, a young kid called Idris got a chance to play Surrey under 18s in no time, and you know, he's a really high quality player that, you know, you never know where his career could go. But it opened up so many doors that Sport England knocked on our door. They gave us £500,000 to try and start to spread it wider, and we ended up going to Birmingham first of all and working in partnership with Warwickshire. Then Royal London came on board to help us go to Bristol, and then ECB finally got on board, and really excited about that. You know, it was a lot of conversations with Ian Watmore, the outgoing chairman, but finally between him, Claire Connor, a number of their team were able to go national. So we're working with 6 county boards going up to Lancashire, Yorkshire, and Nottinghamshire in areas, particularly in the inner cities. It's worth saying as well that the strapline for ACE, you know, we're targeting the black British community in terms of that serious decline, but we are supporting all diverse communities communities. That includes the white working class, it includes Eastern European, includes South Asian community, the British South Asians. We realise that when we go into these communities, there's so many young people, especially lower socioeconomic classes, that don't get that access. And I have to give big credit to Chevy, who sat in the back of the room, director of the whole programmes, who has worked tirelessly across the board. He's smiling. Please stand up, actually. I know you're not. Stand up, stand up. He's worked, it's more than 24/7 you work. I don't know, you must work 30 hours in a day. He's worked tirelessly. If you see him around, please do stop him, because he's doing amazing things. And I think the other part of the programme, which maybe people don't see, I'll give you an example, would be a young kid called Dylan, who Chevy has mentored. He's on the programme, he wants to make it as a pro cricketer, whether he will or not. You know, Stewie, you'll have a look at him, he may or may not. However, Chevy has made sure he's got his coaching qualifications. He's now working with young people, the next generation of cricketer. He's coached on Pride of Lions, bringing young people through. And so the programme is now starting to see wider opportunities that even if these young people don't make it as professionals, they might give back to our game in other ways. So we're really proud of that, and I think it's a big thank you, and I get emotional when I say this, but honestly, to Tomo or you know, Mr. Thompson, our chairman, Richard Gould, Andrew Lane, who's also in the room, who's a trustee. But early on, they just said, let's crack on and get it done. Let's get moving. Let's change it so that the narrative isn't, you know, we wish. Actually, let's make some stuff happen. And now, working alongside Steve and the team, we're really excited about the future of what ACE can achieve. So where that goes next is not just ACE. Obviously, you know, I'm passionate about that part, but I'm passionate about this club as a whole. And the opportunity to become the chair of the Culture and Values Board was something that had long conversations with Mr. Thompson and decided that I wanted to take it on. It's an opportunity to see how the club can have a wider impact in so many areas. There's 4 key areas that we're focused on. As Steve mentioned, sustainability is massive. It's something that I've been passionate about for a long time. We know the world is faced with huge, huge challenges, but if we can do our part, especially as a stadium that has such a big platform and a voice, then I'm honoured to be part of that. And so that's one area. As you say, there's investment going into new roles and new areas, but really driving that. The community side, I think we've got loads of things going on, but we want to really be clear what difference can we make to the local community and society. And I think with a club this size, we can have ambitions that are, you know, massive. I think when I look at what football clubs do in terms of some of the programs they run, they get into more kids and a little bit deeper. And I think we want to reach out to the community a little bit wider, find out what is needed, and then really build some strong programs that do that. So working in partnership with the foundation and lots of people around the club. And other areas as well that are really important, diversity and inclusion. And for me, I think that the big one is socioeconomic class. I think cricket is still seen for many as elitist. I think it's changing, but I think that's still the perception. And so for us to make sure that people feel that this club is welcome and accessible. I heard someone say, I think it might have been Jonathan Batty, or the home of cricket. I do believe Surrey is the home of cricket, and it is the people's ground. And I think that's the message that this club wants to do. So this board is going to take a bit of time to get the work done. We're doing lots of reviewing, talking to lots of people about what we want to do. But I think there are big ambitions about how the club can make a difference to our community and society. So I'm honoured to chair that. And if you see me around, feel free to ask any questions, throw any ideas out, and hopefully make an impact. I don't know if the video, there's thumbs up. So this is just a quick 3 minutes of what's been happening with the ACE programme. And also thanks so much for all your support, and hopefully we can keep making a difference. Thank you.
There's not many black faces in cricket in general, really. The numbers are not coming through at the grassroots all the way through to the international. It's dropped by 75% over the last 20 years.
I don't think young black British kids have enough role models in England to want to play cricket.
How are you going to get into it? If you're not seeing it, why are you going to pick up the bat and play?
It's important now more than ever we come together to drive change.
Now, Surrey have announced that their ACE programme, designed to increase opportunities for the African Caribbean community, is to become an independent charity.
Partnership with Sport England, who have invested over £500,000.
And 25 young cricketers have been given scholarships by the ACE programme.
It'll be good to see you play.
Showing these black communities that cricket is a sport that you can play and you can be part of, and it can be fun, and it's part of our culture. I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's an amazing initiative, and hopefully we can play our part in getting as many kids to get involved in our sport.
I get you, boy! You're not meant to say that, man!
I found out through an email that I got this scholarship. I just jumped up, shouted, screamed all over the house.
It's a talent ID program, so hopefully we'll have them playing at the highest level.
We've actually seen some players that have some potential.
On one player in particular who's been seen by our academy performance managers and is going to get opportunity to play for the under-18s. That wouldn't have happened without this program.
I definitely want to play for England and go down under and fight in the Ashes. I think that is the best part of cricket for me.
I just want to be the best I can be. Go all the way.
I want to push hard and work hard for it.
Hopefully play for England one day and represent our country.
So they get every performance opportunity to make it.
So we're going to start with the schools program, just going to schools. You know what? Let's have some cricket.
Young people need role models in sports and need to see people who are doing it at the highest level. So it's great when people with that experience could come along and share their knowledge with the young people.
Here we go, first ball! Yeah! There you go!
As only 3 full-time head coaches in the history of county cricket have been of an African-Caribbean background.
Right, okay, you have a real good understanding.
Kids do kind of look up to people who they look like, and we need more black coaches.
Just as importantly, can we help them off the field? Can we develop their personal skills, their character, everything? I think it's all a big package.
We don't really need to know the reasons behind you being late. I'm personally not interested.
I never had a female coach when I was growing up, and that would have been really inspirational for me.
We want to get more girls playing and enjoying and loving the game and realising what it can do for them. One thing I hear a lot from other girls is that cricket's a boys' sport, and they don't know there's an opportunity for them to actually play women's cricket. Visibility is so important. You really can't be what you can't see.
If I could see someone do that, of course I would think, oh, well, if she can do it, I can do it.
For other girls playing cricket, just focus on what you want, your goal, not what anyone else worries about.
And that's what we're here for. We're just trying to create opportunities, change people's lives.
Black talent is always there. It's about how you bring it out.
If we come together and work together, we could see accelerated change.
Fantastic, Ebbs, and very inspirational. One thing I do know is you've got a far better cover drive than Alec. He takes a better... I heard that. That's why I thought I'll get that in. But truly inspirational. And we've already had our first Values and Culture Board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and that too was absolutely brilliant and as inspirational as some of the images we've seen here this evening. It's a pretty high-powered board with some incredible individuals on it, and I'm sure with the ideas that were floating around that boardroom, I'm sure we'll be taking those to far greater heights. So I'm really looking forward to moving that forward. Thinking about the longer-term ambitions, and this is the last slide really, just to give you some a bit of a view on some of the longer-term thinking. The top left-hand corner, or top right-hand corner, is all about really, as we've heard about this evening a number of times, is about competing for trophies, and how do we create this era of high performance, both men and women. So certainly something that we need to think about. We always talk about those moments, or as we look back from a club's point of view, regardless of when I was playing, there were eras when you were going through your playing career where there were a 4, 5, 6 year window where it was just a continuous era of winning. And I think that's something that we need to think about, and how we, over the longer term ambitions, how do we create that era of high performance and competing for trophies all the time. The bottom picture in the corner there really is around about, it's a picture you probably walk past it, but I'm not sure if you've maybe seen it from that aerial view a little bit, is the Oval House Theatre. That has been now flattened, and we are about to get ready to push the button in terms of a development of a hotel, subject to a few jigsaw pieces puzzle falling into place. But what we are considering here is what our 10-year refurbishment and redevelopment plan is around the ground. We've got a fantastic facility across the road. Potentially, we've got the hotel in the next couple of months. We're considering what the renovation or the redevelopment is of the Betzer stand, the JM Fin this side. Exactly the same, but it's a long 10-year plan, and we need to put in a refurbishment and a redevelopment plan. So certainly something we're considering. And then on the top right-hand corner there, the picture of the Oval in amongst the community. This is something I've touched on once or twice too, is about establishing Surrey County Cricket Club as in the heart of the community. And it was a lovely phrase that somebody mentioned in a team meeting the other day in our leadership executive group about being a good neighbour. And it's certainly something that we are thinking about in terms of our values and what we take forward, whether it's you're sitting next to somebody, being a good neighbour when you sit next to them, it's somebody just across the road, is it somebody 10 miles away, 15, 20 miles away? How are we a Surrey County Cricket Club? How are we a good neighbour in the heart of Lambeth? So something that we want to establish going forward. And then the final piece is a picture of that magnificent pavilion and the Galadari stand. As memberships grow and the membership numbers grow, it's how we actually continue to improve member facilities. And that is the thinking in terms of the long-term plan, whether it's, as I said, the Betzer, the JM Fin, how we continually improve the facilities in and around the Galadari and the pavilion. So certainly something, as the membership grows and the numbers do, we've got to be really cognizant of that fact to make sure we can cater for all of those needs. And then the final piece really is just the top phrase, which is something that we've been discussing for a number of weeks, really, and that's to be recognised as one of the greatest, most inclusive and sustainable cricket clubs in the world that all fans want to visit. So clearly we want to be one of the greatest cricket clubs in the world. We want to be the most inclusive cricket club in the world, and we want to be the most sustainable, both financially and environmentally. And the last bit, it gives us a bit of a destination that all fans want to visit. So whether that's somebody across the road or it's somebody in New Zealand who wants to come here, that destination is the Kia Oval and Surrey County Cricket Club. So that's really some of the longer term ambitions and something we are thinking about driving towards 2030 and 2031. That's it from me. I'm going to hand back to Richard. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And thanks, Ebbs, for joining in the middle. And over to you, Chair. Thank you.
And thank you, Steve, for your first of many AGMs, I'm sure. And Steve committed the cardinal sin that you can't follow Ebony Arain for Brent. You just can't follow Ebony. And just to reference the brilliant Ebony and the fantastic Chevy, we could not be prouder of what ACE is achieving. ACE has been around for kind of 2 years. It started before the pandemic, really, and this wasn't a reaction to recent events. We were way ahead of the curve, but the impact that we're now seeing of ACE, 4, 5, 6 regional centres as well. I mean, it may have started as a Surrey initiative, but it's grown way more than that now, and I can't give Ebony, the team and Chevy enough credit for what you've achieved. Beyond proud, so congratulations. And Ebony's quote, "You can't be what you can't see," is so true. So in my first slide is really what I would call the unofficial club balance sheet, which is our playing squad. Now here, to point out, there hasn't been an appalling breakout of jaundice if you haven't come through the Surrey Academy. All I would say, it helps if you're Surrey born and bred or you come through the Surrey Academy, you won't end up being painted yellow in a slide. But this is just to highlight the slide that is a really important reference point each year, each AGM. A squad of around 26 players, of around 16 that have come through our academy. I do include Laurie Evans and Chris Jordan unashamedly in that. They may have returned, but they did come through our academy. So even 14 out of 26, I think, is a very strong number. And as much as we've got some brilliant homegrown talent coming through that we're super proud of, seeing what Ryan Platel has been doing in these first few games and Ollie Pope, there's no one that acquires better than Stewie, and seeing the impact that Overton and Clark and others are having in conjunction with our own talent is making a tremendously balanced team where our own talent is learning from others. But it's a team we should be proud of, and it's a playing squad that I really feel is genuinely going to challenge for for honours. And I'm always nervous when you set the date for an AGM and you know you're going to be 3 games in and you think, oh God, this could go any way. And I know last year was an example where we were 4 games in and I think cricket dominated. But we're 3 games in and we're doing all right. It's a good start, but as Stewie keeps telling me, this is a marathon, not a sprint, but we are top of the league. And we're top of the league in the right way, but it's a long way to go. And in doing that, this was a headline from a few years ago. Surrey created the best production line in the world. It really has. And this is something that we all as members should be very, very proud of. And I reference it because, you know, we may be frustrated. We can still taste that success from 2018 when we won the county championship, and it was a lovely feeling. And in the years through the pandemic, the last 4 years, we haven't won a trophy. My God, our production line has produced some of the best talent in the country, and it continues to do so as well, as we're beginning to see some of the bright sparks coming through this season. And a lot of change has taken place over the last 12 months, which we've talked about. We've had 3 CEOs in a year, which is quite challenging as a chairman. We say goodbye to Richard Gould, who made a huge impact in his 10 years. He's gone a bit Harry Potter by the glasses since he's joined Bristol. Charlie Hodson was given a great opportunity to become CEO, and he worked incredibly hard last year in very difficult circumstances, and he's now got the role of being chief exec of another oval, the Adelaide Oval, and the South Australia Cricket Association, a very big role in cricket, and he's looking a bit Aussie in that picture as well. So something about a little quiff at the front there that I think we need to remind Charlie of, but we wish them well. They made a huge contribution, and it's very hard for a club to lose that amount of experience in one go. And we took our time in replacing Richard, and it took us 6 months to find the right individual, and we went through a pretty rigorous process. I, from a leadership perspective, never take the easy option. And we wanted to find the right candidate. A lot of our success, I believe, in the last decade and before that has been built on continuity. And we've only had 2 CEOs in 25 years, and they've both been outstanding. And I hope we're only going to have 3 in 35 years, and I've got no doubt, certainly in Steve's first 4 months, the impact that he's already having. And the important thing is he gets Surrey, and that's very important, that you get Surrey, a very proud members club that Steve really understands. So I think in that tradition of finding good talent here, I think continues with Steve. And I know Steve will be leading the club as CEO, knowing that we are a very proud members club and a members culture at the heart of what we do. This is a great slide to demonstrate. Very few organisations, other than tech companies, probably grew in a pandemic. But we managed to grow in a pandemic when you couldn't even come here and watch any cricket. So to grow by these numbers, it's around 7,000. We were around 7,000 members in 2010. So we've nearly tripled our membership coming into 2023. The ambition is to become the biggest club in the country. That was always my ambition 10 years ago, and we are now around 1,400 short of doing that. Now, I appreciate the MCC do have a waiting list, but they have 18,500 members, and I'm very confident we were going to go past that in the next 12 to 24 months. We're well on the way. And it's important that we've built the Galladari, we've built new facilities, because there's no way you can grow as a club if you're not prepared to continue to improve those facilities and accommodate a significantly greater number of members. And I think anyone that was here during the Hampshire game over Easter or the Somerset game, the numbers have been remarkable, members and non-members. So I think that starts to show quite the impact that our new membership is having, and also having 14 people stand for General Committee. I've not seen that many people stand for an awful long time, and I think that again is a reflection on a very strong membership. But as I say, I think to overtake our friends north of the river, which we absolutely are going to do, even if I've got to go out there and buy a few memberships, we are going to do it. So I'm very, very proud of that, and I'm very, very grateful for the loyalty and the resilience of this membership. And knowing how many people are online and how many people are in this room show how much people love this club, and it's central to their lives. presentation. That was taken on Saturday, actually. I tried to work out roughly, but we haven't been able to do one of these for 2 years because of the pandemic. But this is something that I introduced a few years ago to honour people that have been a member of the club for either 50, 60 or 70 years. And actually, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. Who in the room has been a member for 50 years?
Does that include junior members?
50 years, that's, but yeah. 60 years? 70 years? Mickey Stewart, it had to be. When you've got Mickey Stewart in your eye line, you've always got to get things right. So it's tremendous as a club. I mean, that's one of the many special things that make this Surrey family so unique. We calculated there's about 650 years worth of combined membership in that picture. But it was a special moment that anyone was there. I think it's very, very important to recognise loyalty. And those of you that I've met during that process, and wear that tie proudly with either a 50, 60, 70 or another emblem on the scarf if you're a lady member. And bearing in mind that the Tipper, I know they're not here tonight, but the Tipper twins were now, I think they're now 78 years members of this club. So we are a very inclusive club. But that was a wonderful image, and it really does embody everything that makes this club unique and special. The recovery from COVID, it's certainly the last 2 years have been the most miserable 2 years of my chairmanship in terms of the challenges. And that's not before you even start with the ECB challenges. But the reality of the last 2 years have been really, really tough. Anyone involved in live sport, it doesn't matter, football, cricket, rugby, you know, you just didn't know where the bottom was. And being surrounded by so many talented people, from our treasurer, our committee, our board, our chief executive, have got us through a very, very difficult period. We took some big decisions. We could have taken an awful lot more money from the government in furlough, and I just didn't feel it was morally right to do that. And we returned a lot of money to the government. There's no way you can make the profits we have and pay bonuses if you've taken government support. We returned that before we even knew that, on the basis that it's very important to do the right thing. But the reality of last year and experiences you as members would have gone through were a result of COVID, because the membership grew, the return of crowds was extraordinary. One thing we realised with 100, that it did reach a new audience, an incredibly thirsty audience, because we didn't have enough bar space. It was a very difficult period for the club because the membership office was overrun. And we're only now beginning to staff up to the levels that we need to be at, and that's having to endure a number of significant resignations as people go on to Formula One and other great sports. So we've lost a lot of good people to some very big organisations. So I think, you know, you can build careers here on and off the field very successfully. So COVID has been a challenge, but it's been tremendously rewarding to be able to report the numbers that Martin, our treasurer, will be shortly, because they are utterly remarkable profits. And it shows the 2 years during COVID made sure that we held our nerve, we didn't lose our ambition, we certainly stayed very focused, but it's all about the people. Andrew Lane, George Hampson, Lee Fortis, comfortably the best groundsman in the country, Emily Clark, Alex Lewis, Steve Howes, the amazing Teresa Peters, Rebecca Lockyer, Andrew Pilgrim. I could go on, but we have an outstanding staff, people that we don't take for granted for a second. And going through this 2 years together, you realise how good the people are around you. And we had some of the very, very best. But our ambition was undiminished, our ambition around ACE, our ambition of what we want to do with Kennington Park and Ebony's vision there remain incredibly strong. You've seen the hotel that hopefully will start to be built later this year. We own the White House. We've got one eye on the dilapidated cricketers. We can't keep giving money to all the local pubs. We should own our own pub. So, and it will be cheaper as well, I can tell you that. But the sense is that we know the footprint of this ground is reached its maximum. So when land becomes available, we have to grab it. And that was a once-in-a-generation opportunity to grab the space for the hotel. And these decisions could have been put off during the pandemic. We could have easily held back on the Galadari, which was close to impossible to try and build a stadium with social distancing during a pandemic and supply chain shortages and all the other stuff that you've been aware of. But we did it. I'm glad we did it because we came through it a lot stronger as a result. And my final slide is me looking as miserable as I possibly could. This slide was chosen for me. I can promise you I wasn't about to just go and have cranial wisdom tooth surgery or anything like that. But the reality of that image, it probably sums up one of the most challenging days I've ever had to go through. We hosted a meeting at the end of last year, an all-game meeting, which means all counties, all 39 plus the MCC, just to try and get our heads around the issues that had come out of Yorkshire and the Aston challenges that were a bomb, an absolute seismic issue that went off in cricket, which is why a lot of what you've seen today in these presentations and what you'll see later reflect what has happened over the last 12 months. And we have been very central as a club at doing the right thing and trying to get ahead of this. But there are things as a club that we should not be proud of, that we did in the 70s and 80s, that we have had to apologise for, and we will continue to apologise for. Things that we've explored. We asked people to come forward. We wanted people to share with us some of the very, very harrowing experiences they had at this club that we are really not proud of, but we have to take responsibility for. And that really reflects that slide there, because I wanted to bring the game together. We did. We got through it. And we did things as one game, and we are still getting through it. You've seen the evidence that's been given by the ICCI and obviously the Common Select Committee. We as a game are under a microscope, more so than any other sport I can remember. Not helped when you're not winning on the field, but certainly by the problems off the field. We as the largest county, the biggest stakeholder, have to lean in. We have to show leadership, and that's what I tried to do that day and hopefully succeeded in doing that. And also being involved in as many aspects of the ECB we can to bring about change. The domestic reforms that we've heard about earlier is something that I have been asked to get involved in, and I intend to. We are a very proud Red Bull county. Championship cricket is crucial to the success of the England team, and these are the areas that we as a club need to lead on, and I'm confident that we will. So the priorities as laid out, the new staging agreement from 26 to 31 are crucial. We want to be able to secure our future around the best possible fixtures that we can. The inheritance from my successors, Mike Soper principally, with a staging agreement that Mike incredibly managed to negotiate over 25 years now comes to an end, that this ground wouldn't look anything like what it does without that, Mike. And we always have a great debt of gratitude to Mike's commitment to pull that off. And now I've got to pull off a measly 6-year deal rather than the 25-year deal that Mike had to do. But, you know, everything's relative. So I think we've got a very challenging period ahead with the leadership at the ECB, because there isn't really any leadership at the ECB at the moment. And we've got to help the game get through a very challenging period, which I hope we will do. So hopefully that gives you a summary of where we are as a club and the focus. I certainly would like to propose our annual report to the end of the 31st of the first 22. So in doing so, it's my pleasure to hand you on to our Treasurer to look at the numbers in more detail, Martin Eden. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Evening, everybody. I'm going to give you a quick overview of our results for 2021. It's the year to January 22, but it's effectively the 21 season. And our financial position, and a few observations on the immediate outlook, and then I will say just a few words, about the club rules amendments that we have a resolution for. 2020, as you know, was a very difficult year. Our revenues collapsed and we made a loss. Our financial performance in 2021 was outstanding. We made 5.4 million of profits before tax on revenues of 36 million. Apologies. Within those headline numbers, there are quite a few pluses and minuses. I'll just try and give you a little bit of a flavour. If you remember, at the beginning of the season, we had significant capacity restrictions on all of the T20 and on the ODI. and that made a big impact on our revenues, clearly. Some of that was offset by some compensation from the ECB for lost T20 ticket sales, but that doesn't compensate for the retail spend, obviously. We had the 100 for the first time, you may remember, and the ticket sales and the retail revenue from the 100 were very strong, possibly a little bit reflecting the pent-up demand as we had very little T20 capacity. Most importantly, the test was a sellout and it went to a 5th day, and the hospitality and retail revenues from the test match were excellent. They were pretty much a record, I think. The pandemic still affected our conference and events business, and we ended the year with revenues there of about 50% of what they were pre-pandemic. In the circumstances, I think that is a good result. We had a few one-offs. We had the benefit of some business rates relief. We had an insurance recovery for COVID-related disruption in the previous year. We didn't have any net benefit from furlough income because, as Richard Thompson said, we took a little bit in the early part of the year, but we paid it back. Throughout the pandemic, and including in 2021, we had the continuing support of our sponsors, notably Kia, and most importantly, the extraordinary loyalty and support of our members. And our subscription income in 2021 was £2.6 million. And as ever, we are massively appreciative of the commitment of our members to the club. So despite a season which was still affected heavily by the pandemic, the results were back to about 80% of what they had been in 2019. And if you remember, 2019 was a record year with an Ashes and a World Cup. So this is, in the context of all of that, an excellent performance. And as you've heard, it was not an easy performance to deliver, coming out of a pandemic as different, but very similar in terms of level of challenges as going into one. Trying to judge the capacity restrictions, which were not announced with a lot of notice, trying to judge how much people would eat and drink, as you've heard, on those match days, introducing the 100, a new tournament for the very first time. All of those were significant operational challenges for a team that had been struggling through COVID and had to be rebuilt. So that was all delivered by our fabulous people, led by an excellent leadership team, executive team at the time, Charlie Hodgson as the interim CEO. So that was an outstanding performance. Those profits turn into cash. We generated about £6 million of cash after paying interest and tax. It wasn't difficult to pay tax because we made a loss in the previous year, so there wasn't any. And that allowed us to have nearly £12 million in the bank at the balance sheet date. We had net current liabilities of 4.4 million. That includes deferred income. That's income we've received which doesn't result in future cash outflows but isn't recognised as revenue and profit yet. And so that doesn't give a true picture of our liquidity position. Our liquidity is good. Our debt and our bank and mini bond debt at the balance sheet day was £26 million. The important thing about that is almost all of that, pretty much all of that is at fixed interest rates, which were fixed before interest rates started to increase. So that debt is not exposed to current market pressures on interest rates going up. So the balance sheet, which was a little bit battered by the pandemic, as you know, is being rebuilt and our finances have been stabilised. Because of that cash generation, we are able to continue our capital expenditure, and the focus of that inside the ground is on upgrading the existing facilities. Outside the ground, as you've heard, we continue to move forward with our plans for the hotel. Great opportunity to diversify our revenue. Whilst hotel market values have dipped since where they were before the pandemic, this still has a very robust business case. I'll just say a few words on the outlook. So whilst we've made excellent progress rebuilding our balance sheet and returning to some strong profitability, there are still some uncertainties and challenges ahead. You've heard about the long-term staging agreement. It's unclear yet how much the 100 may affect our T20 revenues. And we're not immune from the general economic environment. There will be some effect on demand from pressures on disposable income. The labour shortages in the hospitality industry and general cost increases will put our margins under some pressure. And it's not yet clear how quickly the conference and events market will return in this environment. However, for the current year, our international ticket sales are excellent. Our hospitality sales are excellent, and our membership numbers, as you've seen, are outstanding. Our business model is still extremely robust. We have talented and dedicated people who deliver our business model, led by a great executive. So all of that gives me a lot of confidence that we'll have another strong performance in 2022. And on that basis, I am happy to second the approval of the annual report and accounts. So I just want to say literally a very few words about the club rules. They have been summarised, the amendments are summarised in the AGM notice. The new rules are on the website, as well as a markup showing the changes. And we held a couple of consultation briefings in March. And so I'm not going to go through the changes and the points, but I want to make just a few observations. Firstly, there was a lot of work involved in detail in this kind of stuff, as you can imagine. And I do want to recognise Callum Doyle's terrific efforts, our company secretary. He's done an enormous amount of work to get that achieved. So thank you, Callum. Secondly, I want to thank the members who attended the consultation meetings. 70 or so members came to those sessions. I want to thank you for your engagement and your thoughtful insights and input. And following those sessions, we decided not to proceed with one of our proposals, which was to increase the number of members required to requisition an SGM, a special general meeting. Our motivation for that was to protect the club and its members, but we very much recognise the concerns that were coming back from those who attended the sessions and indeed from some other members. And so we accept that that needs more consideration. So I thought I would mention that. Finally, we decided that because of the volume of the changes in the club rules, not the substance, there's very little substantive change. There's quite a lot of volume from the updating, as you've seen. That we should allow members the opportunity to vote by proxy if they couldn't attend the meeting. So that's the background to that. I hope you'll agree that the rule changes make sense, and I strongly recommend that we adopt them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. So now's the opportunity to ask some questions. So before we formally go to the votes, hopefully microphones are ready. We'll go and have a relatively quickish Q&A, but I want to make sure if you have a question, you get the opportunity to have it answered. So if you could state your name and your question and put your hand in the air if anyone has a question. Sir, just here. You could state your name first. And we will also be going to Zoom as well for any questions that are coming up in chat that I'll ask certs to let me know.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Christopher Watts. If you could indulge me, Mr. Chairman, 2 questions. The first is, going back to what Alex Stewart was saying earlier, about the club recognising the importance of first-class cricket. But it's interesting that we have no idea yet about what the future of first-class cricket is going to be. And my question is, can't Surrey, for all the reasons that we've stated this evening, the highly impressive reasons, the biggest club in the country, or certainly will be soon, can't Surrey use its influence, given its position, to, as it were, go back away from the ECB as the governing body, but more to a TCCB type institution, which is really a representative body of the counties. I just get the impression that the ECB is trying to do too much. It's trying to be too much to too many people. And my second question is digital transformation. Now, truly, Mr. Chairman, I get digital transformation. I do digital transformation. I get sustainability. I do sustainability. But do we really have to use a card to buy a £2.40 cup of tea in this ground? Where was the mandate to turn to a cashless ground, which, by the way, this county is not unique in? I mean, the same is true at Derbyshire, the same is true at Somerset, the two counties other counties and Middlesex that I know well. Where was the mandate to move to a cashless ground? And could we perhaps have a balance between digital and cash?
Okay, two questions. I'm going to hand the cashless question over to Steve, because I think that's more difficult than the other one. So I'd rather handle the one that I can answer. So the first question was regarding our commitment to red ball cricket and championship cricket particularly. As I said earlier, Andrew Strauss has asked me to be part of his gang of six. I don't know who else is on that board, so at least Surrey has a voice, and it will be a very strong voice with regards to what I know we all collectively think towards the gold standard, and that's the championship, and that's where Ashes cricketers are born, and that's where success should start from. So from that perspective, it's very important that our voice is heard. And at this stage, there is no dates put in the diary yet, but that process will start soon. Clearly, there's a lot of speculation over reduction of this and reduction of that, which always happens. So I'm ignoring all of that because we haven't had one meeting. That's the first question. And the other part of that question was returning to a TCCB type format. I think the challenges the game has endured over the last 5 years have not been helped by having a fully independent board, something that I felt very strongly about and actually stepped back from the ECB over. So we are canvassing very heavily that the board, the ECB board, needs a minimum of 2 county chairmen, sitting county chairmen on that board, and possibly 2 chairmen from the minor counties, the national counties too. Because at the moment there is no county representation on the main board. So I'm not advocating we go from one extreme to another, because I think when the board had 4 representatives on it, it worked. And it's gone from 4 to 0. And now I hope we can find a compromise that works for everybody without breaching any Sport England guidelines and go to 2 representatives. So then I really feel that the county voice will be heard in a way that possibly it hasn't been as heard as it should have been in the last 5 years. So now I'm going to ask Steve to answer the far harder question regarding cashless.
Thank you, Richard. Chris, yeah, I think it's just moving in line with what big event and what big venues are doing. We're moving into a cashless world and a cashless society. Clearly, there's a huge amount of security that's required when you are carrying huge amounts of cash in a venue, particularly with big games when you're sold out. So yes, I understand. Clearly, I think we've had a couple of discussions ourselves about a few issues that have been raised, but it is about moving into a world where we are becoming cashless. So I think there are a number of reasons for it. You've mentioned them from a safety, security, a sustainability point of view, but that's probably where we need to be going as a business.
Okay, next question here, sir. And then one in front. Just state your name.
Yes, David Neil Smith. If I may raise the issue which has briefly been mentioned, which I think is of concern to a lot of members, that of the change in the system for guest vouchers. Got a couple of questions on this. First, is it seems the system is far more difficult now for many members to introduce guests. Is there any chance that we can go back to the previously existing system, which I think many members found far, far easier? Maybe you can't do it this season, but perhaps next season. And the second question is, as some members have said to me, and probably to officials of this club as well, the present system, change system, lacks spontaneity with pre-booking. And I'd like to know what happens if the sun is shining on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon and one of my friends gives me a message. Well, you mentioned, you could come along as a guest. Yes, I'm ready to come. I'll meet you outside the gates in an hour's time. What happens? Can we just get them in or not?
Right, two good questions. We have Emily Clark here as well that might want to aid Steve with that question, so I'll let Steve take this one. Again, it's all about leaving outside the off stump. You don't want to nick one, you don't need to.
And you think I'm going to pass it on to Emily? David, I think you, as I mentioned in the chat before, clearly there is an element of us making sure that we communicated quite clearly before that this change was going to happen. I think that would have resolved some of the issues, that people knew it was coming, and that we needed to think about it. But I do understand the problem. I've had a number of letters from various members about the problem, and I understand the spontaneity side of it as well. But thinking about it, and listen, I will ask Emily to make a comment on it in a second, but I would be very happy to have a conversation about whether or not this is an opt-in issue that we could maybe think about for the coming seasons going forward. Because what we are trying to do is find a solution that everybody is comfortable with the way they operate. And that's very difficult with a membership the size it is. So I would be very keen to explore that. So it's not dead and buried. But can I hand over to Emily? Is there anything further you want to add, Emily?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. The reason for the change was that we know that 92% of people like to secure their tickets online and have no involvement with emails or phone calls to the membership department, which is why we made the change, because 92% is quite a big number. What we didn't do, and what Steve said quite early doors in this AGM, is that the communication-wise, we got it wrong, and we're not going to make excuses. We're going to admit when we've got things wrong, and what we didn't do was tell the 8% that you can absolutely still rock up and pop to the ticket office and get a physical voucher. That's never going to change. You can absolutely come along, bring a friend along on the day. You can have those spontaneous decisions. If it's raining, or the game finishes early and you need to get a refund, you're still going to have that membership voucher. We're not going to take it away from you. So I think what we didn't communicate well enough, this is an additional benefit. If you want to do it online, you can, and you can still use the offline system. But yeah, that was kind of the reasons behind it. We had quite a few issues with the old system as well, with people losing membership cards. We couldn't track who was losing their guest vouchers. We couldn't track who was using them and for what games. What we want to be able to do is say thank you for bringing 8 friends along to the county championship, to this fixture, and reward members for doing that. But we weren't able to do it with the system. So the key takeaway for me is that we can look at there is an offline solution in place. We can look at how we improve that again. So maybe, like Steve says, if you want to receive physical guest vouchers, you can, and we'll make sure they're with you before the start of the season, if you are of the 8% that don't want to do things digitally. But like Steve says, we want to make things work for everyone, so we're more than happy to take feedback on board and see how we can do it in the future.
And look, I have real sympathy, because technology now runs everything. And if you haven't got that technology or the right smartphone or a printer at home and all of those things, you're going to struggle. Similar to my mother, who is a member, and she relies on me to print these things off. I am her ticket office. But and I'm sure there are other people in the same situation. So I can see this through your eyes, and we absolutely, with hindsight, should have had an opt-in, opt-out scenario. But, we listen, and that was a mistake, and we are correcting it. So those creases will be ironed out, but certainly on behalf of the club, I apologise if that has created any additional anxiety or challenge that you would rather not have gone through. But we are dealing with it, and I think Emily and Steve gave good responses to that question. So the next question, just in front, I think, man with the blue jumper was the last name. I'll come to you after that.
Hi there, good evening, Vaughan Harris. Firstly, let me say I think it's great to hear the work that is going on around the ACE side of things and the diversity within the club. But I think tonight I've heard from Richard, Steve and Ebony about the Surrey Foundation. What I would like to understand is what its objectives are for the forthcoming year and the funding side of things, please.
Well, the foundation's separate to the club, so which is chaired by Simon Dyson. And they have some clearly we're very close to the foundation, but they're a separate entity, a registered charity in their own right. So I don't want to necessarily speak on behalf of Simon, because they do have some very clear objectives that we support them with. But given that question, Vaughan, I will follow up with Simon. Simon or one of his team will be in contact with you just to give you an idea of what it is. I don't think we make enough of that necessarily on our own website, which is hard to navigate sometimes. So we will get that information for you, but I don't want to say things that are incorrect, but we will follow up on that. Thank you, sir. And with the glasses, I'll come to you next, sir. The hand before, and then... Well, actually, you're standing up, actually, if you mind, sir, while the chap's standing. If you can wait for a microphone, if possible. The microphone's coming. Thank you.
Guest vouchers. Why have the system changed? I think David Hill-Smith mentioned a bit about it, but I'm John Troke. Why has the system changed from last year?
Okay, I mean, as Emily said earlier, what the situation is that there's a large proportion of the membership.
Yeah, thank you.
But it still leaves nearly 10% of the membership that would prefer to have the old system. But there was a large majority that wanted to go over to a more ticketless, more automated system. But we have listened, and there is an opt back in, so we are correcting that to allow you to have the system that existed before, and we will communicate that to you after the meeting. Okay? Yeah, but we will cover it off and give you both options. Okay? But we will follow up on that, and you will... That's one of the issues as well, absolutely. And it obviously, when you've got 17,000 members now, it's a lot of information to generate if people are able to generate it from. If I can go to the next question, sir, and we will certainly follow up on that. So the man, this chap first, and then to you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Michael Normington. I'm afraid it's back to the elephant in the room and the future of the Red Ball game. And what concerns me is that we now seem to be in a vacuum, as you've said, with no dates mentioned. And I fully support, and I'm sure everyone here supports, the need for chairman of counties to be represented on the board of the ECB. So in the papers now, you're reading all these comments about where we should be going. And what concerns me is a lot of people who are advancing the solutions are actually part of the problem that has got us in this mess. And I would like to think that you, Chairman, and your colleagues would make very strong representations that there should be some people who have something to offer. I have my own views, which I'm prepared to contribute to some. But at the higher level, there should be people who have not been involved in where we are now and who can bring a fresh approach to it. And we shouldn't continue to rely exclusively on those people who have been in charge and got us to where we are now. Thank you.
I mean, you make a good point. We're waiting to see who else is on Andrew's panel. Clearly there is a vacuum, and vacuums get filled, and normally with information which isn't correct. So I think there's a lot of speculation. There's people putting forward their own agendas, which may look like it's coming from an established source that has credibility. But at this stage, there are nothing to base any assumptions on. You know Surrey's position, and it will be, as we have with the members groups, when we meet, we will be polling, we will be asking our membership. But I know the question because I see this through your eyes, and I think as a membership, as a club, we couldn't be more unified in what we want, but we will be communicating anything that we feel we need to tell and ask and engage with you. So thank you. Question over here, and then we'll go to the other side of the room. So chap here.
Hello, Martin Somerton. Mine's more of a Surrey directly orientated one. We've been going on about the hotel and being flat, but there's not much detail in how you're going to progress this, i.e. the cost of it. Are we actually going to build it out of our own money, find the money out of our own resources? Are we actually going to run a hotel as a club? No one, which would seem to be, I suspect, not a good idea. Are we, and therefore, who are we likely, or are we looking to go into collaboration with a recognised hotelier?
I was worried that finance were going to get away with this scot-free. So we can answer all of those questions very well, Martin. So I'll start with Andrew first.
Yes, good evening. We are not going to run the hotel ourselves. It did cross my mind
but we've got enough to do over this side. So we've entered into a long-term deal with a hotel operator, quite a long lease on that. The entire project will cost us about £20 million. The revenue that we'll get for that will be just over 1.1 on a inflationary basis. So that will then be a legacy asset for the club, and I think at that rate of return, it's quite sensible. And it will be totally operated by the hotel company, and also, of course, it will complement our C&E business. So all round, I think it's quite a solid investment. In terms of the cash, we'll be borrowing. We've already borrowed 4. We'll borrow another 6, and it'll be 10 of our own.
Okay, which luckily we have. I'm going to take 2 more questions. I'm conscious we're nearly 2 hours into the meeting, so we've got these 2, and if there's any supplementaries at the end, I'll come back to you. So, chap in the middle.
Chris Coke, this is a relatively humorous question. Alec, are you going to organise a party for your dad in September for the members?
Why? Well, I was hoping he was going to get a cricket question, but
I'm sure we'll do something, even if he has to organise it himself. So he'll need some outsiders just to bulk the numbers up. But yes, I'm sure we will.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil any surprises, but yeah, we've been planning this for 10 years. But, and he's got to 90, so we need to celebrate it. So.
He's got to get there first.
One question over here and one there, and then we're done, okay? So just chap in the pink shirt. Mauve shirt. Thank you. And then over to you, and then thank you.
Hello, Hugh Dickinson. One of the things that I've sort of noticed around the ground recently is a lot of people working from the stands and from the areas around the club. What can we do to welcome working members back to the Oval? What provisions are in place? What can be introduced as well?
Great, good question. With regards to Wi-Fi working here, I think you're asking what can we do to encourage people to kind of pretend they're in the office, but actually they're at the Oval on their laptop. Am I reading that correctly?
Am I reading it correctly?
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah.
Oh, we'd love to encourage you to come down and work from home, because we're seeing a lot of that hybrid working. But yes, absolutely bolstering up the Wi-Fi and making sure that you have accessibility to it, and being able to come in and sit and watch some cricket and actually work. I think I saw a couple of pictures on Twitter actually of people saying work from home with their laptop up with a picture of the cricket in the background, which is fantastic. So we would love you to come and work down here, and we would do whatever it takes really, if people want to come and do that. Very happy to facilitate it.
And we'd try not to put an image on social media when your boss sees it goes. Yeah. But it's a good point, and we want to encourage that very much. And actually, one of the reasons we've seen a slight decline in T20 income is people aren't working in the office on a Friday. And we used to see big cohorts of people bringing their colleagues on a Friday, and they're not in the office on a Friday. So it's going to be interesting to see the impact that has on that format. Final question here. Thank you.
Ken Wright, live locally, Waterloo. On Good Friday, I managed to persuade a couple of friends of mine, I haven't been to cricket for some time, to come down here. Very good game, weather was nice, crowd of 4,000 people. One fly in the ointment, I was on the Peter May side of the stand because they're not members, and the catering facilities were very, very poor. There's only one bar open there. Yeah. And to encourage people to come again, bearing in mind you're competing with football, other sports, other leisure industries, plenty of things to do on Good Bank Holiday Friday. You need to come again. You need to make sure there's more catering facilities open.
You're absolutely right, sir. Well, you would have known we had Deep Blue here. I mean, every good ground has a burger van, don't they? And we had Deep Blue, which was chips, chicken, chip burgers, etc. That catered for non-members. We've got everything possible, hopefully, for members. But in that first game, we had virtually nothing for non-members. No, it was very poor. Alex Lewis, I'm not going to ask him to take the mic, but I've already thrown him under the bus on this one already because I picked up on it during the Hampshire game. So we absolutely are correcting that now to ensure that's put in place. So it's a good question. Going to search quickly, because I know there are a couple of questions online that we should probably pick up too.
Yeah, a question from Tony Rawlinson, who's watching on Zoom. He wants to ask about why there are no championship games at Guildford this year.
Chief Exec?
Yes, thanks for the question. Sorry, who asked the question? Matt?
This is Tony Rawlinson from Zoom.
Tony. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, we had a discussion at the beginning, and when I came into post in January, we had a discussion about the matches the match that should be held out at Guildford. And when we looked at the fixture schedule, listen, I understand the relationship of the club and Guildford Cricket Club itself. I've had a number of conversations with both David Pakeman and David Watts about this, and I really do understand it. But at the time, I think what I got was the communication wrong, and we just announced it without actually speaking to Guildford themselves, and I think that certainly didn't go down too well. But when we looked at it in terms of the number of games that we had at the Oval during the course of the summer and where it would have an impact on the weekend fixtures at Guildford. If we took a game away which was in the middle of the season, it would end up that there would have only been one game of championship cricket here for just over a 2-month period, and that felt like it wasn't right. We had an international, which we believed at the time, a Sri Lankan touring team that was coming, and we felt that would be a fantastic opportunity for them to play there against the county side. So, listen, I'm absolutely aware of it, and we will have these conversations going forward for the next year or two. But that was the decision behind it.
I'm happy to take the majority of that responsibility as well. Steve came into the job, but I want to play championship cricket here when possible. Guildford is a historical part of the club and needs to continue to be that way. But the way the fixtures were set out, who we could play and when we could play, I wanted to play here. So I'll probably put Steve on the back foot when he'd first come into the role, which potentially was unfair, but I was putting cricket first, and hopefully, touch wood, it will pay dividends. But I get the frustrations for Guildford, that they're getting the touring side, but I did put Surrey and championship cricket first to play here, if I can just add on the back of what Steve has just said.
All right. Thanks, Alex.
Okay. Any further questions, sir?
Just one final question from Zoom. This is from Richard Beatty. There's been a few other questions on Zoom that hopefully the people who are watching have agreed have been handled by people asking other questions in the room. Topics like guest vouchers and working from the Oval, that sort of thing, have been brought up on Zoom too. Richard Beatty, probably maybe Stewie could take this one. He says, connected with Tony Rawlinson's question, can we also have a home pre-season friendly either at Guildford or at the Oval? And he wonders why members weren't permitted in to watch the inter-squad game last month.
The first part, Guildford wouldn't be ready in March. I think that's find me a club ground anywhere. And as regards to other pre-season games here, I can't answer the question why it wasn't open to members, the internal game. It wasn't a proper game, I'll be honest, so people wanted to come in. They may have been allowed, I don't know, but it was almost a stage managed game, even though there was Sam Curran against Rory Burns, so there was a little bit of conflict in a good way. But also, on a more serious note, we run out of pitches here. That is the biggest problem because of the other cricket that we host, whether it be test matches, one-day internationals, the 100, etc. We will run out of pitches to play in the right part of the square and on the right surfaces. So Lee has done a brilliant job this year. I've exchanged pleasantries with him over the winter, over that couple of pitches we did play on last year. So one of the compromises was we would not play a pre-season game against another county here on the understanding that he produces good pitches this summer, which he's done so far with the first two.
Hopefully that, I know if there are others we would pick up on them, and I was getting concerned that the only question our director of cricket was going to be asked is if he's going to have a birthday party for his dad. So that you were very, very generous. It does help when he comes in unbeaten top of the league, doesn't it? So you've been very kind to him. Look, I've cut that slightly short because we are 2 hours in and we've still got quite a bit of business to conduct, but if there are questions that haven't been covered, we'll do our best to cover them off by email, in person, later. So apologies if we haven't managed to get round to you. So item 2 is really what we've just been covering, which is the annual report and accounts. They've been sent to members in advance, and further information was available on request. And I now propose, and Martin Eden seconds, that we have a show of hands for members present for the proposal to adopt our annual report and accounts. So votes for in favour. We're doing a count tonight, so that's why it's just, you might get sore arms by the end of this. Thank you. And votes against? None. Great. Thank you very much. That's covered. And I can confirm that the club has received 718 proxy votes in favour and 3 against. I can confirm that the annual report and accounts have been adopted. To item 3, adopting the new club rules. So this is something that Martin has obviously already touched on, and we've had 2 sessions with members that were very helpful and did amend some of the proposals that were coming forward. So based on item 3, I propose that the rules of the club are amended by adopting the rules of the club in the substitution for and to the exclusion of the existing rules. And seconding this is Martin Eden. And again, thank you to Martin and Callum for the huge amount of work that they've done on this, because we don't do it very often. And when we do it, we need to ensure it's done properly, which I think we have done. So from the room, I would like to ask for a show of hands for all members present on the proposal to adopt the amended club rules. Votes for? And votes against? That's great. So for item 3, I can confirm the club received 703 proxy votes in favour, 13 against, and I can confirm now the proposed amendments of the club rules have been adopted. So to item 4, which is the election of president, deputy president, honorary treasurer, and a nomination for honorary life vice president. I would like to start by saying that the General Committee unanimously nominated David Pateman for re-election for a second year of President in 2022, and standing unopposed, I therefore declare him elected. Congratulations, David, and I would like to invite our President, David Pateman, to say a few words. Thank you, David.
I know you're taller, but they don't have to do it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It really is an honour to be standing here for a second term, and I thank you very much indeed for your endorsement. It would be nice if we were standing looking at some silverware, but the guys have said what's going to happen this year, and have faith, because I do, and all the people at these tables do. Stewie, much luck this year. This year was never, ever going to be easy for anybody. Reduced capacities, bubbles, and society in fear meant survival was a good result. We did more than that, and certainly you'll acknowledge, however, on reading the accounts, the club announced some fantastic numbers. Love it or hate it, the 100 did make a difference. The team that produced that result has not changed very much, apart from the arrival of a new CEO. Steve, who joined in January this year. Over the last 4 months, I have personally seen Steve get to grips with some of the real issues, and very, very importantly, appreciate very quickly the special members club we are. Steve, you know you have my full support, and I wish you much success and look forward to working with you this year. To cricket, Alec, Gareth and John have said it all. They are the holy trinity of cricket at Surrey, and I wish you much good fortune this season. The successful start of this year lying top of the table, as Tomo has said, with 56 points, suggests a very good season ahead, and certainly makes for the guys at this table an easier AGM. You, the members, on becoming president last year, I promised you I would try my very best to meet and listen to as many of you as I could. To those I have met, I hope you think the conversations we have had were worthwhile. For my part, I learnt a lot, and I appreciate your thoughts and advice. I would like to apologise to those whose lunches in the 175 I interrupted when Cup was heading for Lip, and importantly to the gentleman who last Friday looked up from his table, looked at me and said, "What's for dessert, and can you hurry up my bill?" If you're here tonight, sir, may I remind you that you didn't leave a tip. I would like to echo the chairman's and everyone's words about this membership. by any stroke, you look at it and say from 13 to over 17 is absolutely marvellous. And the run rate at the moment is over 200 a week. Quite extraordinary. I think we will meet that ambition of being the biggest club very soon. It is a great testament to the club's commitment and management and team to providing a member experience and value second to none. I see some tongues out, and I see the bar staff at attention. So I'm going to close a bit early, but in closing, I'd like to say two things. To the committee for their valued support during a challenging 2021, and I particularly want to thank my deputy, Trish, who is Surrey through and through and a great ambassador for this club. The second, not so happy, because it's a personal goodbye to people who've stood in my position in the past. Bernie Coleman, David Stewart, particularly David and I and Richard worked together for 21 years, and we miss him greatly. And of course, Derek Newton. They leave behind an outstanding legacy, which we should all be proud of, and I hope I match up to them this time next year when I stand down. Thank you again for all your support. I look forward to talking to as many yet again this year. Susanna and I wish you a wonderful year. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, David, and for those very kind words. So in moving on to the business of the meeting, the General Committee nominated Patricia Garrard for election as Deputy President in 2022. She is standing unopposed, so I therefore declare her elected. Congratulations, Trish. The General Committee have nominated Martin Eden for re-election as Honorary Treasurer. He has done an extraordinary job in the last 12 months, as you have seen, particularly with the rules amendments and the other issues that we've had to encounter. We are very lucky to have Martin. He is standing unopposed, and I therefore declare him elected. Thank you, Martin. Our Club Honours Committee met in January to talk about honouring people that we believe have done an awful lot for the club, and a lot of these recommendations come from people in this room. And we have one very special nomination for Honorary Life Vice President, which from time to time there have been 2 or 3 years where we won't elect an Honorary Vice President because this is the highest honour we can bestow on anybody. And as you've seen earlier, there was one individual that left us last year and left a huge contribution and a great legacy for Steve to inherit, and somebody that I believed has made a tremendous impact on this club. So the Honorary Life Vice President was nominated by the Club Honours Committee, and the General Committee unanimously agreed in proposing our former Chief Executive, Richard Gould, as an Honorary Life Vice President of Surrey County Cricket Club. So if I could please ask for a show of hands from all members to elect Richard Gould as an Honorary Life Vice President of Surrey. Those for? And any against? No Bristol Rovers fans, clearly. So I can say that is unanimously elected. Congratulations to Richard. On item 5 of our agenda, I would like to propose that Deloitte continue as the club auditors for a further year. And in doing so, if I could ask for a proposer and a seconder to appoint Deloitte as our auditors. Thank you, Joe Ryan, for proposing, and a seconder. Thank you, sir. And if I can ask for the room for a show of hands to appoint Deloitte as our auditors for a further year. Those for? And any against? One here. Thank you, sir. So in the room, that's a majority of votes. I can confirm on this measure the club received 715 proxy votes in favour and 18 against. I can confirm Deloitte have been reappointed as the club's auditors. Thank you. So moving on to item 6, which is the election of members to our General Committee. Before I announce the result of this year's General Committee election, which was the hottestly, or the most eagerly anticipated, given 14 people stood. Before I do that, I would like to thank those 3 members that will be standing down after their 4-year term. It's actually normally 4, but somebody was so successful they ended up working for Surrey County Cricket Club, so they had to stand down, and that's Rebecca Garrard at the back. So Rebecca moved from General Committee to the club. So congratulations and thank you to Rebecca, but to Warwick Jones, to Kunle, to Steve, thank you so much for your contribution over the last 4 years, 2 very difficult years with the pandemic, and I know you will continue to make a big contribution to the club that you dearly love and respect. So thank you, Steve, Kunle and Warwick. And moving on, we had, as I said, a record 14 nominations for the General Committee, and I can confirm we used an election supervisor, an independent supervisor this year, given that we have so many people standing. We used Savika, and the 4 members elected onto the General Committee this year were Aaron Haranath with 1,059 votes, Laura Wallace with 841 votes, David Gill with 737 votes, and Chris Thompson with 672 votes. So congratulations to Chris, to Aaron, to Laura and to David. And I think, are Chris and David in the room? I think David, take a bow, stand up. Chris, David, welcome. Congratulations. And
Is it possible to just ask one question?
Sure. I can repeat it, so Michael.
You had tremendous support in getting 14 people to stand for the committee, and enormous enthusiasm of the club to do it. It seems wrong that there's certainly 2 members of the committee who either attended no meetings at all or attended just 1 meeting in the course of the year. It seems to me that those people should stand down from the committee to allow other people to contribute in the way they want.
Okay, I think in that situation, I mean, it's up to you to either elect them or not elect them if they choose to stand again. I don't think there's anyone that has not attended a meeting.
Yes, well, according to the sheet here...
No, but that's published before the final meeting. So we had our final meeting today, so that will be 1 meeting short. And I think the individual in question was at the meeting today. So that is not the case. But it's a valid point. If you stand on committee, you should be attending meetings. This does tend to affect people who, particularly teachers, and we have some of the people you're referring to there are teachers, and the hours of our meeting tend to cross over what they do. Obviously now we meet virtually and in person, so there's no reason you can't be on Zoom or be in the room, but it's something we will be picking up. There is nothing in our club rules that call for someone to be to either resign or to stand down for not attending meetings, but it's something we are aware of and we will pick up on. And I'd like to thank those remaining 10 members who did stand and were unsuccessful, and hopefully they will stand again, and that being Mike Reeve, Chris Payne, Ronan Walton, Henry Thorpe, James Smith, Kieran Kamara, Keaton Patel, Richard Smith-Morgan, Tim Blythe and Mike Squires. I mean, it's a very tough year to stand. So, as I say, hopefully next year you will get the opportunity to stand again and hopefully come on board. And just to show you the composition of the General Committee this year is now stated. So this gives you an idea of who is on our committee and at what points they retire. So moving on to Honorary Life members. Honorary Life membership is the gift of the General Committee and are elected by our club as on honour system and then ratified by the General Committee. And these are given to people that we believe have given us significant amounts of support and contributed tangibly to the club, or are former Surrey players who have played for England over a period with distinction. So after a nominations committee met and the General Committee verified, it's my pleasure to announce that Andrew Sugarman, the chair of Purley, is nominated as an Honorary Life member for his work at Purley Cricket Club over many, many generations with the Colt system, the Jagill section and the hockey pitch installations. He is an absolute stalwart. I doubt there'd be a Purley without Andrew. With Jim Faulkner, who spent 60 years dedicated to cricket in Surrey, including sitting on the Surrey Cricket Foundation Facilities Panel, Secretary of the Surrey Playing Fields, Tandridge, Cater and Wallingham. There's very little that Jim has not done for Surrey cricket over 60 years. And finally, to 2 very special people, Judy Stewart. Firstly, Judy is the wife of David Stewart. She has been ever present with David, who is both president and chairman of this club, hosting on major matches, travelling overseas, home and away. And it was the unanimous view of the committee and the Honours Committee to nominate Judy Stewart as an Honorary Life member. And finally, to Dingle Newton, the wife of Derek, both a unique individual in the fact he served as president and chairman. Dingle was unanimously voted as an honorary life member, along with Judy, Andrew and Jim. And it's my pleasure to announce them as honorary life members. Thank you. And the meeting was going too well because I've forgotten somebody. And Charlie Hodgson, I apologise. Charlie Hodgson has also been nominated as an honorary life member. He's been part of the club for 17 years. Clearly he's now in Australia, but I'm sure he'll be back at some point. But his contribution over the last 17 years has been tremendous. And we would like to honour Charlie with an honorary life membership. Thank you. So thank you very much for attending. This has been a longer meeting than normal, but we did have a lot of business to conduct, and also this is our first real meeting in 2 years. But I'm going to leave one slide just briefly, because it's lovely to finish with a slide like this. And as Stewie reminds me, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but that's what we want to see at the end of September. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.